Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Denmark, but we're not going to stick to Copenhagen this time. We're going to go a little bit further out into the Sjaelland countryside, and we're actually returning to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before, but it's been a wee while actually since my last review from them. The last one according to the channel was October of 2019, and the style that we're having a look at today is one that I've never had from this brewery before, so definitely nice to return to them. I'm curious to see how this beer turns out. It's always nice to review Danish beers here on the channel as well, and I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one too. So yeah, for this review then we are going to a little place called Kirke, Hyllinge, which is close to Roskilde, out to the west of Copenhagen. I do recommend that you go and visit Roskilde because it's absolutely beautiful, just a lovely little city. But for this review we are returning to Hornbeer for, I believe, the 5th time. So this particular beer is called Grisk, which translates into English as greed. It comes in at 6.4% ABV, and it is an IPA, and just looking at it I think it's probably going to be a West Coast style IPA, this one. But yeah, like I said, this is review number 5 that I'm doing from these guys. The first beer that I had from Hornbeer was a seasonal beer, if I remember rightly. Then we had 3 Imperial Stouts. I think it was Vladimir P, the Caribbean Rum Stout, and then I think the last one was called the Fundamental Blackhorn or something like this. I'm trying to remember the list from when I had a quick look earlier. But yeah, I've had 3 Imperial Stouts from these guys, which have always been really impressive. But the very first beer I tried was like a seasonal one, and I can't remember what that one was actually, but this from memory is the very first IPA that I'm trying from these guys, and it's nice to see them sending some of their beers over here to Sweden again. So this particular beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2021, and I believe they've actually got another beer coming out in April, so if they have, I'll be ordering up one of those as well. It's nice to have access to some of the Hornbeer stuff once again. But fingers crossed this is a good beer. I hope you guys enjoy my take on it, and I'm certainly curious to try my first IPA from these guys. So yeah, let's go for it then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hornbeer before, and like I said, hopefully we can add a little bit more to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly because I live so close to Denmark and I love the Danish beers. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. Always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Hornbeer once again then, on to my brewery notes. So Hornbeer, as I've told you in previous videos, are a farmhouse brewery, and they were founded back in 2008 by Gunhild and Jørgen Fogh Rasmussen. So the brewery is located in a small town called Kirke, or Kirke Hyllinge. I'm not sure exactly of the Danish pronunciation because it's quite different from the Swedish, but it's not too far away from Roskilde, out to the west of Copenhagen. Almost, it's not too far away from the centre of Sjaelland, which is the easternmost of the main Danish islands. But Jørgen was apparently a very avid home brewer, and Gunhild was also a beer fan, so they decided that they wanted to start their own company together. But the first brewery they had was very small, and they only produced 300-litre batches, but in the first year their Caribbean Rum Stout, which I have reviewed on the channel, was named as the best new beer in Denmark, and that one is a bit of a classic, so I do recommend that you check it out. But 3 months after the brewery was founded, the brewery building burnt down completely, and so they had to set up a new brewery completely from scratch, which opened in January of 2009. But Gunhild designs all the labels on the beers that Hornbeer release, and so they've got a very distinctive style of artwork, and these days they're exported to several countries across the globe. But the company are aiming to make all of their beers CO2 neutral. I think they are very close to doing that if they haven't achieved it already, but they're producing over 2,000 hectolitres per year. And they've got over 30 beers in their regular range from what I understand, and many of those have won prizes. But as of March 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced 220 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, so they have been pretty prolific. But they are one of the more established and fairly well known breweries in Denmark these days. I don't know how many breweries the Danes have at this point in time actually, but there always seems to be new ones kind of popping up in Copenhagen and things like that. So I need to try and get a hold of some Danish beers from different parts of the country actually. I think, you know, to get stuff from outside of Sjaelland can be a little bit difficult. I think the only ones that I really see in Copenhagen from outside of Sjaelland would be, you know, a few of the Oben beers, Abeltoft Gård Brewery, and then Bad Seed. They're based away up by Aalborg. I always forget the Danish pronunciation of that, Aalborg. But yeah, they've got quite a few really good breweries over there, and if you get the chance to try some of the Danish beers, I highly recommend that you do. And these guys are a brewery that I heard of just after I moved to Sweden back in like 2015, so I've known about these guys for a wee while. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Hornbeer for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Very curious. See what it has in store for us. So just a little quick look at the artwork for you there. You can see Gunhild's lovely paintings. I do really like the artwork that they have on these things. I'm pretty sure I still have my Vladimir P bottle somewhere, because that's one that I want to go in the display behind me when I eventually buy my own apartment and have my little beer reviewing den in the basement or whatever. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here, and there you can see the Hornbeer bottle cap on this one, and yeah, it looks pretty nice. You know, the cow kind of symbolises that these guys are a sort of farmhouse brewery, if you like. But it says on the side here, normal, it's saying, let me see if I can translate the Danish here. So the Hornbeer Grisk. So normally the word Grisk in Danish is connected with people that are greedy, but the word Grisk in connection with this ool means that we are wild about hops and IPA beers. So one can be very greedy with hops, because this is basically you can never have enough hops. I think that's what it's saying. So we have put many in this brew, but it's saying that Grisk is a lighter beer that's brewed with many different beers. We've brewed with the American hops in this beer, and then dry hopped it with, or we've brewed with American hops in this beer, and then we've dry hopped it with Amarillo, Simcoe, Centennial and Mosaic. So yeah, classic ones. This delivers a lot of fresh notes in the beer, especially, or især, but yeah, namely I guess citrus, grape, furanola and fresh hops. I don't know what furanola is, but yeah, but this beer is good with lamb, pork, grill and feta cheese. I think that's what it's saying. I did not bad with that. Yeah, it was true. When I've been learning the Swedish, the Danish actually comes fairly naturally. There's a few words in Danish that are a little bit more kind of German, I think, and it sounds a little bit more German, I find. But yeah, no, it's easy enough to understand. I think it must be easy enough to understand and read the Danish. But yeah, Hornbeer.dk if you want the website. But yeah, nicely presented beer. This one, 330ml bottle. I think I paid maybe about 40 Swedish kroners for this one, so that's about €4. That translates to roughly £3.50 sterling, and I guess maybe about $4.50, $5 American. So yeah, the Danish beers are actually a little bit cheaper here in Sweden than they are in Denmark, actually, which is quite funny. But yeah, of course, when it comes to import beers here in Sweden, we basically pay an extra 10 kroners. So you know, because the distribution company that brings these beers in and gives them to Systembolaget has to get a cut. But yeah, 330ml bottle, this one, 6.4% IPA with Amarillo, Simcoe, Centennial and Mosaic. Should turn out to be quite nice. So yeah, Amarillo, as we know, Amarillo and Simcoe are two of the original high alpha acid hops. Centennial came along not long after that, and Mosaic is a little bit newer. But yeah, Amarillo is about 12% alpha acid, lots of big orangey notes. Simcoe is kind of more passion fruity, And again, about 12% alpha acid. Centennial, I think, is about 12 as well, if I remember rightly. Lots of kind of lemony, citrusy notes, and then Mosaic is a little bit higher, at about 14% alpha acid, and that tends to give you some lighter sort of tangerine notes. The other thing I should say about this is when I was researching this beer earlier, that bottle's very, very light, but when I was researching this beer earlier on, they had a little blurb on their website that was talking about how Grisk was connected with the financial sector and the bankers and stuff. So yeah, I think they were, when they first released this beer, they were taking the piss out of the bankers a little bit, but I think they like to, some of their beers that they release have sort of political statements and things like that. And from what I remember, the Vladimir P, when I reviewed that, they actually were hacked by Russians, from what I understand. Their website got taken down by Russian hackers, and they had to stop producing the Vladimir P because it was, seen as taking the piss out of them. So I think they like to make a few kind of political statements with their beers, if you like, but their beers are good. So yeah, there's a lot of stupid things in the world, if you like. So it's good every so often to take the piss out of them, and I think that's kind of what they've been doing with some of their beer titles and stuff like this. So I like it. I do like it. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, when we poured it, it had about between a third and a half finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head. That has just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer now, and it leaves a little bit of a thick ring just around the edge of the glass. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one, and I think it's definitely going to be more of a West Coast IPA just from the appearance. This one's got a very nice kind of light amber colour to it. So yeah, I would say yeah, light amber colour, this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see there's a steady stream of sort of medium bubbles going up towards the bottom of that head there. So it looks very, very nice, and as you can see, it's crystal clear. Remember, the colour of your beers is dependent on, two factors, I guess. One, the type of malts that you use in the first instance, and then two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour out of the beer. Barrel aging and adjuncts are also going to play a role in beers, but that's not at play in this particular beer. Yeah, for an IPA, it looks the part. I definitely think this is going to be more of a West Coaster, it's quite obvious. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one and just see how we get on. Yeah, yeah, strikes me as quite a classic, old school IPA, this one. Yeah, nothing overly surprising about that, to be honest. And that's one of the things I like going back to. I like going back to beers like this and breweries like this, Hornbeer and Midfains and stuff like this. Some of the breweries that brew the more old school type beers, it's a nice kind of change of pace from the New England hazies and the big sweet fruity sours and stuff like this and the pastry stouts. It's nice to go back to something a little bit more kind of classic and drinkable like this, I guess. But yeah, this one is it comes across pretty nicely. I think this is going to be a nice, easy drinking one. So straight away with this beer, you're going to smell a nice little bit of a bready, malty base to it. You can get a little bit of that sort of wholemealy, brown bready backbone to the beer. There is a little bit of a white bready character to this one, as well as a little bit of a bread crusty element. So a lot of that going on in this one. There is a little bit of a straight up caramel in there, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive sort of thing. And yeah, I really like how that side of the beer goes together. I mean, the malty side of things is kind of what you would expect from an old school sort of West Coasty IPA for sure. But this one, I said, remember when I tried Pliny the Elder recently, I kind of realised that, the West Coast IPAs can be a little bit more bready and biscuity, and this one really leans more towards that. It really leans a little bit more towards that kind of end of the spectrum than the big sort of oily, caramelly sort of things like you would get with the likes of the Torpedo from Sierra Nevada. But yeah, I mean, this has basically what you would expect: a nice kind of brown bready malt base, a little bit of bread crust, some nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity elements to it, sweet caramel. It's got everything you would want from a West Coast IPA. So yeah, it has my approval on the malty side of things. There's maybe one or two little slightly woody notes to this one, the further you, the more that you smell of it. But yeah, the malt base is what you would expect from this particular style. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's have a little look at that. So yeah, going by the aroma, I've got a feel on this one, maybe it's got a little touch of Columbus in it as a bittering hop, because you can smell a little bit of that kind of distinct spiciness to it. But like it was saying, those hops I read to you earlier, I think those will be dry hops. And remember, when it comes to determining the bitterness of your beers, the it's all about when you add the hops during the wort boil. So if you add them on earlier on during the wort boil, that's going to give you a lot of bitterness, whereas if you add them later, that's going to give you flavour and aroma. There's basically a progressive trade-off as we as you go through the wort boil. A beer like this is probably going to have something between a 70 and a 90-minute wort boil, but yeah, it goes together really. It does go together very nicely. So yeah, the aroma out of this beer is pretty nice. So yeah, I like how this one, I do like how this one goes together. So yeah, the green component of this one's quite nice. There's a little touch of earthiness in there, a nice little bit of floral aromaticity. I do get a wee touch of spiciness, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of how do you say? I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of you know, a little bit of Columbus in this one, because it's just got a little bit of that spiciness to it, and you've also got a good bit of grassy zestiness to this beer, which I think works quite nicely too. I would say overall it does lean more towards a floral component actually, but yeah, that's definitely worth paying a little bit of attention to. But fruity wise, the fruity side of the beer is quite orangey, as you'd expect. I mean, when you've got Amarillo and you've got Mosaic in there, you're going to get quite a bit of orangey note out of it. So you can smell the more oily oranges from the Amarillo, you get a little bit of the lighter kind of tangerine notes in this one, but you've also got a good little bit of lemony zest from the Centennial as well. Those are the things that are really taking the forefront. This is quite a citrusy leaning West Coast IPA, but you can get a wee bit of the oily passion fruit from the Simcoe in there as well, but you really have to search for that a little bit more, to be honest with you. This for me is really, it's quite orangey dominated with a little bit of a lemony character as well. So yeah, bear that in mind with this one, bear that in mind with it. But yeah, it's quite, the aroma of this one is quite typical for the style, but take a little bit of time to ponder that over before you taste the beer, and I think it's time for us to have a taste of it now. So let's go for it. This one is the Grisk 6.4% West Coast IPA from Hornbeer in Kirke, Hyllinge, close to Roskilde in the middle of Sjaelland in Denmark. Let's get stuck into this. Nice to have Hornbeer on the channel once again. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's an old school IPA, that one. It's nice to go back to things like this, actually, it really is. Yeah, this is the sort of thing you would have tried in, like, you know, 2013, 2014, and you'd be like, hell yeah. You know, these were the sort of New England hazy sort of things back in the day. But that's a really solid, just nice drinking beer. So thumbs up to Hornbeer for this one. I like this. And for me, there's an element of nostalgia in there, which means I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, this is definitely, like what I said from the aroma, it's a citrusy leaning IPA, and it's got a nice little bit of that kind of biscuity, West Coasty sort of slight booziness to it. I think to me now, having tried all the New Englandy stuff, a lot of the West Coast IPAs, they just feel a little bit more boozy because of that oily malt base. But I think this one is a really nicely done beer. So thumbs up to Hornbeer once again. I need to have a look at a few of their other light beers. A lager, if they've got a nice Pilsner or something, that would be good. I've been going through a little bit of a lager phase recently, of course, but that seems to be evolving into a barley wine phase at the moment. So yeah, I would like to try a lager and a barley wine from these guys if they've got them. I'll need to see what they've got on their on the Untappd pages and stuff, and see what we can do about getting some of it. But yeah, it's a solid beer, this one, definitely. Quite old school though, as I said. But yeah, where do we start with this one then? So straight away with this beer, across the middle of your palate, you've got a nice kind of smooth, a little bit of a smooth kind of pale malty, bready sort of thing. You can really feel that forming the backbone of the beer. So there's a little bit of a, kind of brown bready sort of thing. So I like that about the beer. It's got just a little bit like a wholemeal bread. It really has that. So yeah, wholemealy bread forming the backbone of the beer. There's a bit of a kind of bread crusty element in there as well, which I do like. And then on top of that, you've got the sort of slightly brown sugary elements. Like in the middle of your palate, in the very centre of your palate, you've got a sweet kind of caramelly note to it. Then as you move further out from that, it becomes a little bit, there's a teeny little bit of an almost toasty caramelly element to this one, but then as you progressively move out towards the edge of your palate, it gets a little bit more kind of biscuity, like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this beer for sure. So yeah, the base in this one, I think, is goes together really nicely. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward base, to be honest with you, but I think it really works. Yeah, brown bread underneath, sweet caramel in the middle, a bit of a toasty caramel as you move further out from that, and then more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity like as you go out towards the edge of the palate there. But if you go to the front corners of your palate, then diagonally back, there's one or two little woody elements. So I can understand that about this beer. I really like how that goes together. But yeah, the middle third of your palate, I think that's about it. That's all you can really say about it, to be honest. So quite straightforward and a little bit old school, which I do like. On that border region then, between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel the breadiness does thicken up a wee bit, and you get a wee bit more of a kind of grainy, toasty type note to the beer. But on the back third of your palate, again, it's got a sort of brown bready, grainy quality, which I can appreciate as well. I do like how that goes together in this one, definitely. So I think on the back third of your palate as well, you do get a bit of the yeasty notes. You can definitely pick out a little bit of that airy, yeasty sort of thing building up on top of the kind of the backbone of the beer, so the back third of the beer. So I really do like that. But yeah, you've got you can feel a nice sort of how do you say it? You can feel a thicker. It's not thick actually, it just feels really airy, so you can feel the yeasty notes of the beer making it just feel a little bit bigger on the back third of your palate, and as you move further forward, it just kind of gradually fades away at the border region before the middle third of your palate. It drops down like this, then the malty flavours are all kind of condensed into each other. They're quite dense and stuck in, but yeah, it's nice how that, it just adds a little bit more depth to the beer. But on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, it's definitely a little bit more earthy, if you like, and as you move further forward, it progressively becomes more kind of floral and aromatic. It is quite a bright floral aromaticity. I don't know if I would describe it quite as spicy, to be honest with you. So yeah, there's quite a few interesting things going on with this one, definitely. But yeah, the floral aromatic side of this beer is quite nice. It gives the beer a little bit of crispness and freshness, but then again, round the front curve of the palate, the beer's got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing going on, which I think works quite well. So you do get a wee bit of zestiness out of that. But the green component, I think, again, it's just quite old school and a little bit nostalgic. But let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. So on that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice, you have a very nice kind of, you just get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. On that border region again, between front third and middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of a more bready, doughy note. I think you do get a little bit of that, and a toasty kind of grainy element. Then under the base, you've got a bit of a kind of brown, bready kind of element to it. But on top of that, you've got a nice little bit of an oily sort of quality as well. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get more of a kind of passion fruity note of it. You can feel the Simcoe there, but the Simcoe mellows out as you move further forward. But then the tropical notes, it's got a wee touch of apricot in there as well. But yeah, the passion fruits at the back, and as you move further forward, it mellows out, and you've got a little bit of a kind of mango-y quality. But then as you move towards the front half of that front third of your tongue, then you've got a it definitely moves into a more kind of citrusy vibe, if you like. So the front half of that front third of your tongue, you can feel the Amarillo kind of forming the base of the beer. The Amarillo gives you that big oily orangey character, but then on top of that, you start to get the lighter tangerine elements, which is the Mosaic. There's maybe a wee tiny little bit of a pineapple-y note to this one as well. Mosaic can sometimes give you just a little bit of pineapple, I find. and I'm getting a wee bit of that out here. But then as you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue, you can definitely feel that more pungent citrus, that sort of more pungent lemony citrus from the Centennial in this one too. I do miss Centennial. Centennial always had a really nice citrusy element to it. And you can really get that in this beer for sure. It always used to build a good bridge between the grassy and green component of the beer, having a bit of Centennial and things. So I really like how this one goes together, absolutely. Yeah, so this is a proper old school sort of West Coasty IPA, this one. So it's a nice change of pace from all the hazy New England stuff that we've been reviewing over the last little while. So thumbs up to Hornbeer for this one. I think this is a solid beer. Is it in the same kind of bracket as their Imperial Stouts? Not sure about that. I'm not sure. The Imperial Stouts are something pretty special from these guys, but this is a solid IPA. You can't knock it. But I think if you want to try the really special beers from Hornbeer, then you want the Caribbean Rum Stout or the Vladimir P. You definitely want something along those lines. So yeah, go for it and have a go at some of these different beers from Hornbeer, because they've got some interesting stuff. But I think, yeah, the next one should be like a barley wine or a lager beer or something from these guys. If they've got like a Dunkel or a Doppelbock, I'd be curious to try that as well, I have to say, or a Scotch ale even. That would be really cool. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Let's leave it at that for the tasting section. But mouthfeel wise, it's definitely kind of mid-bodied. The carbonation's very smooth. It's got a bit of an oily sort of slickness to it overall. The hoppy bitterness, I think this one's probably about like 60 IBUs, 70, something like that. Yeah, I think 60 or 70. It's not. I don't think this one's like the really high IBUs, but remember, IBUs are my weakest point of reviewing beer. But the malty base, like I said, it's got a nice little bit of a kind of bready, grainy thing underneath. There's a bit of a sweet caramel element to it, and there's some nice kind of oily, kind of fruity elements to this beer. It's got a good, it leans towards the citrusy end of the spectrum, like I said. But yeah, it's a solid beer, this one. It is a solid one, this, and I've enjoyed reviewing it for you here on the channel. So nice to return to Hornbeer once again after quite a bit of time, but I think we can round off the review there. So this one was the Grisk or Greed, 6.4% West Coast type IPA from Hornbeer in Kirke, Hyllinge, in the middle of Sjaelland in Denmark. Nice to have these guys on the channel once again, and I'll take a look at the other beer they're releasing in April, if indeed they are releasing one. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, pardon me, from Hornbeer, and I'm sure we'll return to these guys at some point very, very soon. Sláinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys on the next review.